And we're back.
Yeah. What was I talking about? I think I was talking about the most recent situations in Iran and the history of protests in Iran. Basically, as I mentioned, like the difference, the periods between protests is getting shorter and shorter. And the reason is that when the government, basically, when there is a corrupt government, they can't just make anything better, right? And everything is just everything is just getting worse and worse every day for people, right? And now people in Iran are not happy with almost in any aspect of their lives. Economy, freedom, human right, women's right, and basically everything. The last protest, I guess, one of the biggest ones actually was in 2019. And now I've been in Canada just for less than over 4 years. And now I'm talking about a couple of situations, like in just a little bit over 4 years. We've seen a couple of protests, right? And some of them were huge. Like the last one was in 2019 when the government increased the gas price. They tripled the gas price, basically. Like $1 became $3 for each liter of gas, something like that. And
you guys have gas.
Yes.
Yeah. You're an oil producer.
Exactly.
You export
like
oil.
One of the biggest largest resources of oil and natural gas in the whole world, right? And with a good government, with like a government who thinks about people and is spending the resources for the people, basically nobody should be poor in Iran. Like economy should be great. And but
because you guys export so much oil is what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot. Like we can see that like in other Middle Eastern countries. You can see that in
Saudi Arabia,
right? People like life situation of people is great, right? And other people like Qatar, for example, right?
What you're saying is that the government, the people in power, are making ungodly amounts of money right now.
Exactly. But because there is a lot of corruption in the government, not a lot of that money gets into the life of people, right? I can give you a couple of numbers, like of the money they have stolen, from the government later. But yeah, they are spending a lot on military and armies, basically. Just to and also like under lobbies and everything. I think it's better to talk about it later.
Sure.
But I just wanted to mention that people get tired, right, of like these situations. 2019, they tripled the gas price and there was a huge protest. They shut down internet for a month and they killed 1,500 people.
When?
2019.
In 2019, they killed 1,500 people.
1,500
and they shut down the internet for a month.
They shut down internet for a month, and they kind of like with just mass killing and with like a huge operation, they were able actually like to stop that protest.
And they shut down the internet. so that information can't go outside.
Exactly. That's the biggest reason they do that.
It's not to stop information going inside because people already know, right?
Yes, people already know, and that's actually another reason. Like, they are trying to also keep people inside to not understand what's happening in other cities, right?
Okay.
Because usually the biggest protests happen in capital, in Tehran, right? But they don't want other cities to understand what's going on because they might join the protest, the movement, right? And they've spent a lot of money on an internal network. They call it internal internet, basically. When they shut down internet for like they can't access, like people in Iran can't access anything which is outside Iran, but the network inside Iran is still working. Like you can do your banking, you can buy a stuff like online. Everything is working inside because there are lots of data centers inside Iran, right? There are lots of services, but you cannot use any other like things on internet outside Iran.
And your cell phone doesn't even work like to go outside.
No, everything is just inside. Yeah.
That's insane.
That's insane. And you know how much money you have to spend to be able to do that, right? And that's why the resources are not like spent for the people.
It's to control the people.
It's to control the people. Exactly. And yeah, they did that. And now this is probably the most important part of this talk. And that's why I actually took a couple of notes, and I want to talk about this when I'm looking at my notes to make sure everything I say is what I intended to say, actually. So until 5 months ago, in September 2022, a 22 years woman named Mahsa Jina Amini.
Mahsa Jina Amini.
Mahsa Jina Amini.
Mahsa Jina Amini.
That's correct. Was killed by the so-called morality police, which is basically, as I mentioned before, it's a police who is in the city to make sure that you are wearing the hijab properly.
And by your description earlier, it's not just the
scarf,
the scarf you wear. It's making sure that you're following all the policies.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Basically, in the most basic definition of it, you are not allowed to show any part of your body, and you just have to wear clothes that kind of like support all parts of your body, like even your hand, like just your fingers can be outside of your clothes.
And it's only for women?
It's only for women, right?
And this so-called morality police, is that what they do they call themselves the morality police? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It has a name.
It has a name.
It has a name.
So
yes.
they're literally calling themselves like
exactly. Yeah.
The morality police.
Yes. Basically on like every I would say like busy streets or busy neighborhoods, they have a van. They have a minivan basically, which is set on it, which is said actually morality police.
Wow.
And there are a couple of women, a couple of men in the like uniforms,
Mhm.
in police uniforms. And if there's a woman who's not wearing the hijab properly, they call her and they say, "You are not wearing your hijab properly." So you either have to say, it depends on how bad you are doing that,
Mhm.
right? If it's just a little bit, they just give you a warning,
Mhm.
and you can say, "Yeah, sorry, I accept," and then you wear your hijab,
Yes.
and then you just go away. But if you are not wearing, like, for example, a scarf at all, or it's down here, and all of your hair is visible, they actually arrest you and they get you to a place called, like, what is it called? Like the place that they bring people,
Jail? Prison?
something, not a jail, but I don't know what's called, but somewhere that you go and your behavior gets corrected.
Oh,
Yeah.
like a behavioral correctional facility.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then they're violent as well. Like if you try to fight them back and say, "No, I don't agree," or
And-
something like that, they get violent.
And when you mean fight back, you don't mean physically fight back. You mean like saying like, no, I disagree.
Exactly.
They'll come and they'll start hitting you.
Exactly. And then they arrested Mahsa Amini, and they started violently beat her, and she was killed when she was in custody.
And how old?
22 years.
22 years old.
Yes.
So they killed a 22-year-old girl because she wasn't dressed properly.
Exactly.
And by dressed properly, it's not like she was out naked, in the streets. She just wasn't wearing the clothing exactly how they wanted her to.
Exactly. Like, and I would say it probably was just a
Yeah.
scarf.
Mhm.
Instead of being here, just here.
And they murdered her.
Exactly. So that was another round of protests started. People started protesting basically all around the country because they're just tired of this, and this is not the first time, right? It's there are lots of other footage of these behaviors that's been happening during these years. But sometimes, like when this is that violent and someone gets killed, people just get frustrated and they start.
And the government, they don't try to hide it, right? They say we killed her. Is this true?
They try to hide it after the protests were were serious. They said that she had previous conditions.
Oh, okay.
But
you mean she was sick
exactly.
pre-existing medical conditions? Okay.
Exactly. But her family stated that is just a lie, and she didn't have any pre-medical conditions. So, and the mass protest initiated, and the beauty of it is that it's a protest that's initiated and led by women. But because everybody knows that this is a corrupt government, all people started supporting this protest, like men, women, even like teenagers. Everyone joined this protest. And people started, especially women, started cutting their hair in the public, and they started burning the scarf, like showing their define, right? Showing.
Cutting the hair. They're not allowed to cut their hair.
They're not even allowed to show their hair.
They're not allowed to cut or show their hair.
Yeah, they can cut their hair, but I mean, in public, that was That was some kind of slogan, right?
I see what you mean.
That was a sign to show that you're not happy.
Okay. So by the fact of cutting your hair in public, you're showing your hair. Therefore, you're breaking the rules.
Exactly. And this led to a confusion. So this was a huge protest, right? Basically, the biggest protest in the whole history of Islamic Republic.
Thousands of people,
all cities around the country.
So probably over 100,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. And for a long time, like it wasn't just a week, for example, of protest. It's been people were protesting for like the past 5 months, right? It's just not getting stopped. It's not to stop, right?
And they're not stopping.
They're not stopping. No.
Is it every day?
No, it's not every day now. It used to be every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit slower now,
mm-hmm.
but I don't believe that it's stopped.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I need to mention that this is not a protest anymore. This is definitely a revolution. And this is the nature of any revolution, that it has like days with a lot of protesters,
sure.
And then it slows down,
mm-hmm.
and then it goes up again, and it's just the nature of any revolution. It usually takes time, but there are up and downs.
Why is it a revolution this time and not a protest?
The reason is that's what I wanted to say. Like, because people started burning their scarf in public, that was a confusion for West, I would say. Everybody thought initially that this is an anti-Islam protest. People don't want Islam, or this is actually what New York Times said once in first few weeks, actually, that this is because of economy, or some said that this is a movement backed by the US or Israel,
mm-hmm.
for example. But this is not any of that. This is, I say this is a revolution because people don't want change anymore. People want regime change. They don't want a reform. They just don't want any of these people in the government. Just need a full regime change. That's why we call it revolution this time. And the reason I say that, I'm not sure. I said about hijab, right? What's like hijab basically is a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned that before, but it's worth it to mention it again. Hijab is not just a scarf. It's a concept. The Islamic Republic uses that concept to create an apartheid against women, right? And that's just an excuse, right? Because of Islam, women should not be working the same way as men. People should be in swimming pool like with their own, like swimming pool should be separated, beaches should be separated. Women cannot ride bikes, they cannot ride motorcycle on their own.
There is a girl I met here. I'm trying to remember her name.
Nusha?
Nushin.
Yeah.
Nushin.
That's a Persian name.
Yes. Nushin was from Iran, and the reason I'm giving a big shout out to her is she was I think this was years ago. I met her in 2020, and I'm not sure how long she's been here in Canada, but she was a girl and she rode her bike. And she started a club of women who rode their bike.
Wow.
And, from me, I didn't quite understand it, but she's like, no, this is a huge deal because where I'm from, women are allowed to ride
Exactly.
bikes.
Exactly. And as I mentioned, like there are lots of things. Like women are not allowed to sing solo. And for example, like they are not able to attend the sports. What else? Like even they have to sit in the back of the bus.
So all the
Just
men in the
public
front
transport. All the
and,
men in
and all
front
the women
and
in
all
the
the women in the back.
You know what that sounds like?
Yeah, I know. And that's why we say it's not anti-Islam. It's about humans, right?
Yes. I mean, they did that in the United States, you know, but before the civil rights movement, black people were required to sit
Yep.
in the back of the bus.
I know.
White people were in the front, except and in this case, it would be your spouse, your wife,
Exactly.
has to go in the back of the bus, and you have to go in the front.
Exactly. And yeah,
And I'm sorry,
no
like
worries.
it's not that the men agree with this, right? It's not culturally the men say, yes, like we agree with all these things. No, it's at the people of Iran, everyone disagrees with this, correct?
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. You know, it gets back a little bit to the history, but Iran is in the Middle East, and most people think of Middle East as Islam, right? As Islamic countries. But Iran is the one country that's never been an Islamic country. Iranians were not Muslim. And it gets back to thousands years ago when Islam were forced to Iran by a big war from Saudi Arabia, right? When Muhammad, as they say in Islam, they wanted to spread the word of Islam, and they did that by like fighting against people who didn't agree, right? And they had a big war thousands years ago, and that's how Islam got into Iran in the first place. And that's the reason that why even today, after thousands years, there are lots of real Muslims in Iran now, but the majority of people don't believe in Islam still.
And in 1979, prior to that, before the new regime change, right? The government was not Islamic.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all.
What was the primary religion in Iran before then?
There, like the primary, I would say, was still Islam.
Okay.
But basically, it's like a Western. It was like a Western country, right? There are Christian here, right? They can go to church. They have their own community and everything, but they can't make decisions in government based on that, right?
Yeah,
for all people.
It's separation.
It's the separation. Exactly.
Church and state.
Exactly. And that's how Iran was before that revolution. And there were people who were wearing hijab at that time, but also people who were free to wear everything they want. And actually, I can send you these photos of
yes, please do.
Iran before that revolution. And when you see, this is one of the things that we always talk about, we Iranians, that when Iran probably is one of the fewest countries that when you see a photo from the past, you think it's actually the future. And it is true. Like when you see photos from the past, you see people free in beaches, like women are working like with men. It's just like beautiful, but not now. Like, uh, yeah. And as I mentioned, this is not about Islam now, this protest. It's all about the human rights
Mm-hmm.
and freedom and the choice of people. Like people want to choose how to live, how to wear clothes. Basically, just basic human rights,
Basic freedom.
basic freedom. Exactly.
And this freedom, I know we talked a lot about women. The morality police, is there aspects of culture that men have to also adhere to, or is it mostly targeted towards women?
It's
So-
mostly targeted
Okay.
against women. Yeah, exactly. And uh, and the beauty of this protest I wanted to mention is that it's all led by women. And this is probably, if it's not the first, one of the first movements around the world, revolutionary movements around the world, that's that's being led by women. And the slogan is Woman Life Freedom.
Woman, life, freedom.
Jan Jian Azadi, which is basically the Kurdish, like the 20 Mahsa Amini was a Kurdish girl. Kurdish means basically there are people in Iran, in different provinces of Iran, have their own culture
Mhm.
and sometimes their own language. And Kurdish people is a girl from Kurdistan, which is a province in Iran. So Jan Jian Azadi is
Jan
Kurdish.
G. Azadi.
Jan Jian Azadi.
Jan
Jian Azadi.
Azadi.
Exactly. Means woman, life, freedom. And this is what it makes it really beautiful. And at the same time, I think it also kind of is the problem of this protest. And that's why I think probably one of the reasons that it's not get enough coverage in the media. That's probably
What do you mean? Because it's led by women that it's not covered more?
I think even in Western countries, they are not still ready for this kind of movement, to see that huge movement is led by women. And I think that's definitely one of the reasons. It's a huge statement I'm saying, but I think that's one of the reasons. Even in Western countries, they're not still ready to accept that a huge movement like this can be led by women. And I actually love that. I mean, I love that it's led by women, not that, not, I don't.
Yeah.
Like
I know what you mean.
media
You
doesn't
like,
cover. Yeah. It's amazing.
it makes you proud. Like,
I'm proud of them. I'm proud of women in Iran. They are amazing. They are really brave. It's just you. I'm gonna, as I mentioned, I'm gonna send you footages of this protest in Iran, and you can't believe like women are in like front line of the protest. They are getting killed, and uh, they are getting shot by what's called these BB guns, and lots of people lost their eyes. in this protest, and they just don't stop, and it's amazing. It's unbelievable.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
What percentage of people are protesting compared to like men versus women? Like,
At the moment, I think it's kind of equal.
okay,
Uh,
but the women are driving it.
exactly. Yeah. It started by women, initiated by them. But now basically just everybody just is joining that movement. And yeah, another thing I wanted to mention is that, like, it's been about 5 months now,
Mhm.
and they've already killed 500 people,
They've killed 500 people.
more than 500 people, and about 15,000 people are arrested. And among those,
15000.
exactly, and among those 500 people, there were at least 60 children under age 10
Underage 10.
were killed.
They're killing kids.
Kids, exactly. That's what I said. Like, when you see, you always, as an Iranian, you always try to think that my government's not going to do that. But when you see the history, you realize that they're actually doing that. They've been doing that for years to keep the power. And they continue doing that. And the reason people in Iran, basically, they just want a couple of things from people outside Iran. And one of the biggest one is to be their voice. They want world to hear their voice. And that's basically the most important thing, right? Because they are protesting, but government has the power. They shut down internet. And when they shut down internet, usually, like, people outside Iran, they just don't see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing gets outside. No information goes outside Iran. So, but and when they shut down internet, you don't have access to Twitter, you don't have access to Instagram, not even WhatsApp. And how do you want to tell the world that these things is happening? And we don't want this regime anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why we Iranians outside Iran are protesting almost every week. I'm sure you've seen in Vancouver.
I've seen them in Vancouver. I sent you a video of it last week.
Yep. Almost every week. On Saturdays actually, we protest in art gallery in Vancouver. We just want world to hear us. That's basically the only thing. And we still don't know, to be honest, why media is not, like, doesn't have enough coverage for this movement, right? Just
Yes.
compare this to what was happening in Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
a couple months ago, and just compare that, or compare it with the Black Lives Matters movement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just compare these two, and compare the number of people who are killed in these movements, and you realize the difference, how they're not basically intentionally covering this protest. And I don't know the reason, to be honest. That's a question for the media and for probably the governments, Western governments. But as an individual, the only reasons I can see is one, I said, the movement is led by women,
Mhm.
and the world is not ready to see that yet. The second one is that they see people in Iran as Middle Eastern, and Middle Eastern have, has always been like this. It doesn't matter. It's not a new thing, right?
Mhm.
They've always been in war, and they're not. I'm not sure if I should say that or not,
You can say whatever you want, my friend. Say it.
but they're not white, right? That's that's probably the reason, right? I can't see any other reason. This is just these two, or the last one, which would be really, really disgusting if that's true, is that Western governments are working with Islamic Republic and they have benefits with being them in power, with them being in power, right?
Mhm.
Like other than these reasons, at least I cannot see any other reason why such a huge movement after 5 months is still not in the media.
Yeah, I can definitely say from like myself, it's not something I see a lot in the media, right? Like I see a lot of things about Ukraine. And I'm not saying it's bad that I do it. Like it's good to talk about the world issues, right?
It's human.
Yeah, it's a human thing. But in Ron, it's not something that you do see in the media very often. Sometimes you see it, maybe a little more of late, but I definitely don't. Um, the first two things, I can't speak too much of myself, right? But the last one that I don't know. I wouldn't say that perhaps it benefits the United States or Western countries, but I definitely think it's not advantageous for them to intervene. I'm not saying that they should intervene, right? I want the best thing for Iran, right? I don't know that having a military invasion, or force thing externally is good for you. Based on what you're seeing in Ukraine, right?
Yep, but it's not that. That's a difference. We don't want, like, nobody wants military invasion in Iran, right? We don't want that. It's just like we've been asking Western governments to expel Iran diplomats for over 3 months now, and they're still not doing that.
And by that you mean you're asking that if there's foreign diplomats from Iran in Canada or the United States or the UK or
Europe,
NATO countries, that they should expel them and say you're not allowed to be here anymore.
Exactly, because like it's really easy.
Yes.
Because you either believe that this is against human rights, that the government is killing their people, and I don't think in like these days with all this media and social media and these footages, it's not hard to uh, to like prove that, right? It's really easy. Like there are lots of information, and there are families there. So you either believe that they are against human rights or not, right? And you either believe that they are terrorists or not. But I don't know, like the Western governments are just, it seems they're not doing anything. They're just condemning their action. Like, what's the benefit of condemning an action? To be honest, this is probably if you talk to a lot of Iranians here and talk about the word condemn, this is probably the word that they all hate to hear. Like, it just doesn't mean anything, right? You just go and condemn, and then the business as usual continues, right?
It's talk with no action.
It's talk with no action.
And again, you're not asking for military support. You're just asking for, hey, like basic things to put pressure, like
Exactly.
remove the diplomat.
Exactly. Just remove the diplomats. Like, we don't want you to do anything, but we want you to stop helping the Islamic Republic, because that's how they are pressing people.
Yes. And I think it's also important to talk a little bit historically again, because I think what people don't recognize is the previous revolution and events in Iran, right? That the Western countries were involved, right?
Of course.
Like the CIA had a huge impact to the Islamic Revolution that occurred in 1979, right?
Definitely.
And I'm not saying they should do it again, but my point is, for some reason in 1979, and I'm not a political expert, so I don't know why, they decided, when I mean they, the United States decided that intervening, that helping the revolution was advantageous to them at that time.
Exactly.
And they have meddled in Iran politics, right? Like they do throughout history, throughout the world, right? And so the question is, why now? You know, in a big way, they caused, I don't want to say they caused it, but they definitely had a huge impact to it. But now, you know, when people are asking for help, you know, there's inaction. And again, you're not asking for, you're just asking for basic things.
Exactly.
So what else can people do to help, right? Like if people want to donate or get involved or support the cause of Iran, what are things that people can do now?
Yep, that's a great question, actually. I think the first and most important thing everybody can do is just raising the awareness, right? It's like this is what you're doing right now. You invited me to be your first guest for this podcast because we talked about this. And you said, that's a great opportunity to do that. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what we say. Like, just raise the awareness. And I think it has an avalanche effect, right? If everybody does that, like not everybody, but if some people do that, it's gonna just like be some kind, it just gonna have some kind of effect. And finally, it's gonna reach the media, right? Because it's either up to down or down to up, right?
Yes.
It's either media is making something big and now everybody's aware of that, or if media doesn't care about something, now if people are talking about that a lot, media then has to do the coverage.
Sure.
Right? That's basically the most important thing everybody can do. Just posting on Instagram, posting on Twitter, everything that can help. And another important thing that could be done is to
I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry. Sure. So on Instagram, is there any place that people can a page or a person to follow? Like who should they be following?
Yes, there are a lot, and I'm gonna send you a list of the Instagram pages they can follow, and I'm gonna actually categorize them.
Sure.
Because there are pages who are basically showing the crimes that are happening by the government in Iran against people in Iran. There are pages which are actually like trying to raise the awareness
Sure.
of what's happening and how you can help. I'm going to send you a list of all
Okay.
those pages, actually, which would be amazing.
And then number 2, a thing.
Number 2, this is probably more than people, but people can help with talking to the officials, because in Canada and in the US, you can call your official and you can ask them to do something.
Yes.
Right? And that's something we want. That's something we really want people to do if they can, to actually call their officials and ask them to take an action to help people in Iran. That's really important. There are lots of things they can do. Like they already know, like officials already know what they can do. Like, for example, something they can do is they can support the people who are arrested and are in jail now in Iran. They can be, it's called political
refugees.
No.
Are you talking about when they extradite?
No, let me. I'll let you know what's that. It's you can like an official can officially announce that they are supporting that specific prisoner, and it's kind of like it's still not official, but at least it raises the awareness.
Basically, what you're saying is call your local representatives, call your state representatives, call your federal representatives to put pressure on them to take action. Exactly.
That's another thing they can do. It's really important as well.
So if you're in Canada, and if you're in Vancouver, right, call the mayor.
Exactly.
Right. Call the provincial people, the MPs, your local people can make a huge impact.
Exactly.
If you're in the United States, right, call your senators, call your state senators.
Exactly.
Call your governor's office, call your mayors, your local communities.
That's going to help a lot. And that's basically all we want, right? It's just now we are at a time that we need action. And action should be taken by these officials, right? That's all we want. Put the pressure on them. That's all we are trying to do, right? Yeah. We've had huge protests all around the world, Iranians outside Iran. We've had a protest with 80,000 people in Berlin 2-3 months ago. That was huge. There's another one just in a week in Los Angeles, and we are doing another huge protest February 11th.
And Ehsan, you made a website. So I do want to highlight this is Ehsan isn't telling people to do things without himself taking lots of action. He's very passionate about this. He created a website to help coordinate protests across regions, right? So what's that website?
Yes. The website is called Yekseda. Basically, Yekseda means it's a word in Farsi.
Yes.
And it's called just how to say it. Yekseda means we all should be together and we all should say the same thing, right? And when we all say the same thing, we are louder, right? So that's the meaning of the website and what it does.
How do you spell it? And then what's the address that they can go to?
This is YEKSEDA.org.
Say it again.
YEKSEDA.org. Yekseda.org.
Yuxada.org. And
That's
what does it
right.
do?
So basically, as I mentioned, we were protesting every week on Saturdays. And when I was in the crowd in Vancouver, I realized that, and we have slogans, right? We are walking in a street and we are chanting our slogans like woman, life, freedom, freedom for Iran, justice for Iran, and all of this. And then I realized that we are 2,000 people in the street, but every couple hundred of people are chanting a different thing, a different slogan. Like in the first block, people are saying women, life, freedom. The second block, or just a couple people like after them, they are chanting a different slogan, right? And the reason we are doing that is just to raise the awareness, right? We want all people to hear us.
Yes.
But from a person outside the crowd, it's not like it's probably just a gibberish thing that doesn't make any sense, right? Because people are just chanting, and it's gonna be like all the voices are gonna mix together. And now with this website, every slogan is shown on the website and displayed for 30 seconds. And if everyone opens that website in the crowd, all 2,000 people, like everyone in the same city, in the same time zone, they all see the same slogan.
It's region based.
It's
so
region
that
based.
if you're in Vancouver, you're going to see the Vancouver slogan.
Exactly.
And if you're in Berlin, you're going to see a different slogan for those people.
Exactly. And now everybody is chanting the same thing. Now just imagine 2,000 people say, woman, life, freedom.
Woman,
in the street,
life, freedom.
In the street, right? That's going to be huge. And yeah, it was the initial idea. And then it actually got a lot of attention. And now when there is a plan for a protest, we are announcing that event in all cities with the location, time, a map, and a description of what we are doing. Because now there are like protests by Iranians outside Iran are happening in more than 150 cities around the world. And each one has a different goal. Like they do different things. They kind of like do some performance. Sometimes they just have a chain of people. And so it's basically the central location to announce all of these protests. And if you are like for example, in Vancouver or in Los Angeles, you can go. And if there is an event, you can see that event and the details of the event in the website. There are other things as well. Another problem of that, not problem, but after we announced that website and it got a lot of attention, we realized that all of the slogans are either in English or Farsi. But people in Germany, for example, or in France or in Italy, they want to have slogans on that language of that country, right? Because again, we want people to hear us.
Yeah.
And in Italy, you have to have chant slogans in Italian.
Sure.
Right. In France, you have to say it in French. So we created a platform in Yuxada again. And now leaders of this protest in different cities can go and create their own list of slogans. They can add like up to 50 slogans, and it generates a link for them, and the leader can share that link with all the people attending that event in that city, and they all say the same thing, which is great. It helps a lot. They've got a lot of attention, and yeah, we are still helping. And it's not just that.
And so for people listening, if you want to go to an event, go to yaxida.org. If you're an event organizer and you want to post slogans or post an event, go to yaxida.org.
Exactly.
Ehsan, if they want to reach out to you, how because I'm sure you would love to contact people to help them in any way to how do they reach you?
If they go to the website, there's a contact us page.
Okay.
We have an Instagram and a Twitter page.
Okay.
They can contact us there. There is a feedback page. They can write anything. And if one of the most important features that we wanted in this website is to not store any information of the users, because it's against the government, and government, if they would reach that information, it might be a problem for people. So even in the feedback page, we do not ask for email or any personal information. Okay. It's just a text you can send us. So but if you want us to get back to you, you can add your email to the end of feedback.
Do you want to audibly here say your Instagram handle or your Twitter handle or anything like that?
Yes, that's yaxida.org.
Okay.
Exactly. Like the same as the URL, yaxida.org. And again, I think yaxida_org in Twitter. But I'm going to send those handles to you, and you can add them to the video or
absolutely.
The description. Yeah, sure. Of course, that would be happy. That would be great, actually. I would be happy.
And I'm also going to say this. I'm assuming that maintaining and updating the website's very complicated, or it's time consuming. How about that? And that you would love if people could volunteer their time and help in editing or creating new content, or I'm sure you would love to have that help as well.
Yes, exactly. Another thing I wanted to mention about this movement is that other than being unique because it's led by women, it's also unique because it's very modern. We are using a lot of technology. We are even using AI in this movement. I can't say all the details, but we are even using AI to help this movement at some point. And there are lots of other things we are doing in technology. And one of the most important things is probably providing VPN to internet inside Iran, because now it's really, really difficult for people in Iran to see any social media, basically. All of them are banned or filtered. And so I would say it's not just Yaxida. We probably need help with a lot of other things in technology as well. For example, as I mentioned, like providing VPN. If someone is able to provide VPN to Iranian, or they can contact us and they have a solution for that, or because Iran is using a technology, it's for China. It's called China Great Firewall, I guess, which is basically a software that analyzes all the packets that is going on internet, and it filters them if they are going to a filtered website like Facebook, Instagram, or something.
The government
does that.
Does it, yes.
So and they are always updating this, right? And every day it just gets harder and harder to provide free internet to people in Iran, right? If someone has a solution, if they can help with we are already creating VPN for people in Iran, right? But usually government identifies the VPN servers or VPN solutions, and they block them. Right?
Yes.
So basically, it's a fight. We provide new solutions, they block it. We provide new solutions, they block it, right? And we definitely, this is one of the most important things now. We definitely need internet to be provided to Iranian. Now, For example, Starlink
Mhm.
is one of the solutions.
Mhm.
It's already in Iran, but it's very like a small amount. Like
And you have to be next to one of the terminals, right?
exactly,
Like it's not like there's a terminal everywhere.
exactly. So VPN is another solution. Another actual thing that we can help with. We are still, I mean, as I mentioned, lots of teams are helping. Lots of people are helping. But yeah, if anyone has any solution, that would be
So technologists, software engineers, developers, but whatever you call yourselves,
exactly.
Entrepreneurs, anyone that can reach out to San,
Exactly.
he would love to work with you or put you in contact with other people. You know, so
even funds, like providing VPN servers. It's not cheap for like if you want to provide
Yes.
internet to so many people, right? For now, for example, I've already created a couple of servers, VPN servers, but I can only provide it to my friends and family, right?
because they get overloaded.
Yes, exactly. And if a server gets overloaded, the government can identify it and they block it, right? And you have to consistently change the IP, change the domain and everything. It's costly, right? It's a costly thing to do. But like the first few months, I bought other VPNs, like commercial VPNs, like ExpressVPN or NordVPN for my family, but they blocked those as well. So now we know there are solutions, but it has to be somehow really distributed to make sure that like those servers are not overloaded and it's hard for government to identify them. So
that's a huge technical problem. So if folks listening, if anyone knows how to have a distributed VPN service or if anyone's willing to host one, you know, or like if you think about like BitTorrent or your I'm trying to think like your cryptocurrencies when you're mining on your local PC, like even if it's your local PC that you could, if someone could create a solution where you could like host a VPN while your computer is running, I'm sure that would be hugely beneficial.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's another thing. As I mentioned, anything in technology could help. Like now it's a modern world and government also is using technology, right? And they have money, they have power, they have funds, but we are just individuals. We somehow have to just like, there are lots of other like individual teams or like people who are just trying to do their best to somehow help people in Iran, but it's still limited, right? The capacity is limited. So you still need a lot of help.
Is there a donation page?
There is not. There are some, but there is not a donation page that goes to this kind of projects. We are working on it. We are working on a project that we can centralize all the movements, basically all the helps that we are trying to do for people in Iran.
Like a crowdfunding page or
something like that. Okay. But the problem is that they are distributed now, but we are trying to build a platform or something or a donation page that basically everyone agrees with, right? And people around the world can just go and donate if they want, which that would be used to help people like access the internet or anything that could be helpful for them.
And again, for you, like having software people or people in tech to help with that effort would be hugely beneficial.
Exactly. It would be hugely beneficial. The other things I wanted to mention is that, yeah, that's basically it. The last thing I wanted to mention is we talked a little bit about condemning versus taking actions. Now, the most important thing, basically, like, because it's, as I mentioned, it's revolution. And every day is different, right? Every day, new things is happening. Now, as I mentioned, IRGC, which is, what is it? I don't even know what is it actually stand for. But IRGC, which is Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is the main organization that is helping Islamic Republic in military actions, everything, right? And it's definitely a terrorist organization, right? IRGC is responsible for shutting down that flight. IRGC. And now people in Iran and outside Iran, we are asking all Western government to put IRGC, to identify and put IRGC in the list of terrorist organizations. The European Parliament, they talked about it past like the last month, and they didn't agree with it. And now we are pushing again, right? This is one of the biggest requests because IRGC is doing a lot of business with Europe, European countries, even probably with Canada. But we want them to put IRGC in the list of terrorist organizations. And that's a huge step because that's gonna cut lots of resources that Islamic Republic in Iran has access to. And that would be a huge help. Now, if you go on Twitter, you can search for hashtag IRGC terrorists, and you see a lot of tweets in Twitter. And that is our today's action. Today, we are trying to ask all the officials in European countries, Europe Parliament, and everything to just make sure that we can identify and put IRGC in the list of terrorist organization. And that has to be done. Like all of the crimes that I talked about, IRGC is responsible for. And not just inside country. IRGC is responsible for a lot of crimes outside Iran, in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon. It's just the Islamic Republic way to initiate wars outside of Iran to make sure that like Middle East it is not calm. Middle East should always be in war, should always be in problem, so they can just how to say it, they can identify themselves as we are trying to help Middle East, but this is actually not true, and they are killing people in all countries. Getting rid of IRGC and getting rid of Islamic Republic is the best thing that could happen to the whole world. It's good for the world, not for just Iranians.
IRGC, folks. Call your governments, call your local representatives to put IRGC on the terrorist list.
Yes, IRGC should be in terrorist list. And that's the minimum action they need to take.
And you also brought up something interesting is I do want to highlight here that, you brought up the idea that having a stable Middle East, a stable, that they don't want that. And the reason they don't want it, folks, is because having a stable country or a stable region is not good for control.
Exactly.
and the United States does this, it's probably one reason that the United States doesn't, or the Western countries don't want such a stable Middle East, is because if it's stable, then they can't control them, right? And so I just want to highlight that fact that
that's definitely true. Yeah, that's definitely true. And I want to say that again. A new modern Iran is coming, and it's gonna be beneficial for the whole world. I'm pretty sure of that. Everyone's gonna be talking about it in near future, and we are gonna be proud of it.
Well, I'll be proud there with you, man. I know 100%. And I agree with you, because if you think about people on Earth, I think the best thing that can happen is stability across the board, removing people from poverty, right? If in general, if we can get rid of poverty and inequality,
exactly,
just at the foundation level, right? Then in general, the world's a safer place for you, your children, and in the future.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Is there anything else you want to share, my friend?
No, I think I talked a lot. Sorry if I talked about some things that I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have, or it was a little bit emotional. Maybe I should have talked about the positive things a little bit more, but these days are a little bit different. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be here, hopefully in a couple of months, with great news about New Iran. And I'm going to be talking about so many positive things at that time. I promise.
I don't think you have to be sorry, my friend. I think it's all good information, and we shouldn't be worried about having these conversations and just being real with people. Sharing your emotion, I think, is good. So I appreciate you coming here and sharing this with me. And it's my pleasure, Ehsan Pourtorab, folks.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate that. I, again, really appreciate that you picked me as your first guest for your podcast. That's just my honor.
And
Thanks so much.
I hope it won't be the last time I have you on.
No, for sure. It's not.
All right. Well, thanks, folks. That's a wrap. And
thank you, man.
See you next time.
See you.